The rescue of the galaxy was vast and cold, and in its endless darkness, a small human ship drifted like a dying ember. Captain Sarah Chen floated in the command pod of the research vessel Horizon's Edge, her breath shallow, her fingers numb. The life support systems had failed 3 days ago. The distress beacon silent for 2. In the black void of space, 47 light-years from Earth, she was alone. She had accepted death, made peace with it. Her crew had evacuated in the only working escape pod, and she had stayed behind to manually seal the reactor breach. It was the right choice. The only choice. 7 lives for 1. But now, as frost crystals formed on the inside of her visor, and her vision blurred, Sarah felt the weight of everything she would never see again. Her daughter's graduation, her mother's garden in the spring, the smell of coffee, the sound of rain. "I'm sorry, Emma," she whispered to the picture floating beside her, her small girl with bright eyes and a missing tooth. "Mommy tried." The cold was a blanket now, heavy and almost comfortable. Her eyes closed. And then light. Not the warm light of heaven or the tunnel people talked about. This was blue, brilliant, piercing. It cut through her closed eyelids like a knife. Sarah's eyes snapped open. Through the frosted viewport she saw it a ship, but not like any human vessel. It was organic, curved like a nautilus shell, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that rippled across its surface like waves. It was beautiful, alien, impossible. A beam of soft light enveloped her pod, and she felt movement. She was being pulled, rescued. The last thing Sarah saw before unconsciousness took her was a shadow moving beyond the light hull. Slender, with too many limbs and eyes that glowed like stars, she woke to warmth, not the harsh heat of medical equipment, but something gentler, like sunlight through leaves. Sarah's eyes opened slowly, and she realized she was breathing, really breathing. The air was sweet, tinged with something like vanilla and ozone. She was lying on a surface that seemed to mold perfectly to her body, and around her the walls pulsed with the same soft blue light she had seen before. Patterns moved across them like living art symbols, perhaps, or something beyond language. "You are awake." The voice was melodic, layered with harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. Sarah turned her head and saw them. There were 3 of them. They stood perhaps 7 feet tall, their bodies covered in scales that shimmered like opals shifting between blue, purple, and silver, depending on the angle of light. They had 4 arms, each ending in delicate, 6-fingered hands. Their heads were elongated, with large eyes that held galaxies within them, quite literally. Sarah could see nebulae swirling in those depths. The closest one tilted its head, and Sarah realized it was studying her with something like concern. "Your species, ... It said slowly, as if tasting each word. "You are fragile. So fragile. But you survived." Sarah tried to speak, but her throat was raw. The alien moved closer, graceful. Fluidan pressed one hand to a panel beside her. A moment later, a cup of water appeared from the wall itself, as if the ship had simply created it. The alien helped her drink. Its touch was surprisingly gentle. "Thank you," Sarah managed, her voice cracking. You saved me," as the alien said. "We heard your silence." Sarah blinked. "My silence?" "Your distress call ended. In the void, silence is the loudest scream. We came." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. Tears. She thought she had no more water left to produce. "Why? You don't know me. You don't know my people." The alien's eyes seemed to glow brighter, and when it spoke, there was something ancient in its voice. "We are the Thelari. We are navigators. We are watchers. And we believe that every light in the darkness matters." Even one another of the Thelari stepped forward, younger perhaps, its scales brighter. "You were dying to save others. We saw the recording from your ship's logs. 7 escaped because you stayed. We understand sacrifice," the first Thelari said quietly, "and we honor it." Sarah stayed with the Thelari for 17 days, as their living ship, for it truly was alive. A creature of engineered biology and symbiotic technology, traveled back toward human space. In those days, she learned the Thelari were an old species, ancient beyond measure. They had been traveling the stars for millennia before humanity had discovered fire. They had seen empires rise and fall, watched civilizations bloom like flowers and wither like leaves. They were explorers, philosophers, and above all, guardians of knowledge. They did not conquer. They did not colonize. They simply ... wandered, learned, helped, where they could. We have seen so much death, the eldest Thalari, whose name translated roughly to Keeper of Fading Songs, told Sarah one evening as they stood before a viewport that showed the endless stars. So many species snuff themselves out before they truly begin. War, greed, fear, the darkness inside is often crueler than the darkness outside, and humans. Sarah asked quietly, "What do you see in us?" Keeper turned its galactic eyes to her and for a long moment said nothing. Then potential. You are young, reckless. You hurt each other in ways that break our hearts. But you also, it paused, searching for words. You also love with a ferocity that makes stars jealous. You sacrifice for strangers. You reach for the impossible and make it real. You are dangerous and beautiful and terrifying and kind, sometimes all at once. You give us hope, Keeper said softly, that perhaps this time the light will not go out. Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. I don't know if we deserve that faith. Faith is not about deserving, Keeper replied. It is about choosing to believe anyway. On the 17th day, they reached the edge of human territory, a small outpost station called Haven's Gate. The Thalari ship drifted close, and Sarah prepared to leave. She stood in the airlock, her rescued pressure suit repaired and cleaned by Thalari technology that she still didn't fully understand. Before her stood Keeper and the two younger Thalari who had helped care for her. I don't know how to thank you, Sarah said, her voice thick. You gave me back my life. My daughter will have her mother because of you. Keeper stepped forward and placed one of its 4 hands over Sarah's heart. The touch was warm. You owe us nothing, Sarah Chen. This is not a debt. This is simply what should be done, one living being helping another. But if I could ever repay you, then live, Keeper interrupted gently. Live well. Love your daughter. Watch her grow. Tell her stories of the stars. That is payment enough. The younger Thalari pressed something into Sarah's hand, a small crystal that pulsed within her light. A gift, it said shyly. It holds a recording of our songs, so you never forget that you are not alone in the dark. Sarah clutched the crystal to her chest, tears streaming down her face. I won't forget. I promise. I'll never forget. She stepped into the transfer pod that would take her to the station. Keeper called out one last time, Sarah Chen. If ever the darkness comes for us, if ever we are the ones who scream in silence, remember that lights matter. Even one. Sarah nodded, unable to speak, and then she was gone. Pulling away from the beautiful Nautilus ship, watching it turn and slip back into the deep dark, its bioluminescent patterns fading like a dream. Sarah Chen made it home. She held her daughter. She told her story to anyone who would listen, and many did. The tale of the Thalari spread across human space like wildfire. The aliens who saved a human for no reason but kindness, the ancient wanderers who still believed the galaxy could be good. Humanity had encountered other aliens before, some friendly, some neutral, some hostile. But the Thalari were different. They asked for nothing. They wanted nothing. They simply existed, moving through the cosmos, helping where they could, learning all they could. Singing songs to the void, they became legend. The Good Shepherds, the Star Watchers, the ones who proved that not every alien civilization was a threat. For 23 years, the Thalari wandered their routes through known space, occasionally appearing to help a stranded ship or share knowledge with a struggling colony. They were rare, but constant like lighthouse beacons in the dark. And then one day, they disappeared. The silence 23 years after Sarah Chen's rescue, the galaxy had changed. Humanity had grown, expanded. 300 colony worlds now dotted human space. Connected by quantum communication networks and faster-than-light travel routes. The United Earth Coalition governed with a steady hand. And while there were still conflicts there, always where humanity had learned to reach outward. Instead of tearing itself apart, and through it all, the Thalari had been there. Not often. Not intrusively. But like distant relatives who sent postcards from faraway places, they appeared now and then. A Thalari ship would emerge near a struggling mining colony and share water purification techniques. They would drift past a scientific outpost and leave behind data crystals filled with astronomical charts. They saved 14 people from a reactor meltdown on Proxima Station. They taught farmers on New Beijing how to adapt Earth crops to alien soil. They asked for nothing in return. Ever. Asterisk. The galaxy had other powers, of course. The Virexian combined a mercantile federation of insectoid traders who measured everything in profit. The Korthax, Empire Reptilian warriors who respected strength and honored combat. The Silicate Collective, silicon-based beings who communicated through mathematics and found organic life fascinating but perplexing. But the Thalari. The Thalari were special. They were proof that the universe could be kind. And then, without warning, without explanation, they vanished. It started with silence. The Thalari had always been irregular in their appearances, so at first no one noticed. A few months passed, then 6, then a year. Ships traveled routes where Thalari vessels had been spotted for centuries. Distress calls went unanswered. The few Thalari outposts that existed peaceful way station gardens, where their living ships could rest, were abandoned. The galaxy noticed, but the galaxy also shrugged. Space was vast. Perhaps the Thalari had simply moved on, found new routes, new interests. It had been known to happen with nomadic species, but Sarah Chen noticed differently. She was 64 now, as an admiral in the Coalition fleet, her hair silver, but her eyes still sharp. She had never forgotten her 17 days aboard the Thalari ship. Never forgotten Keeper's words. The crystal they had given her sat on her desk in a place of honor, still pulsing with gentle light. Still singing its alien songs when she touched it, and she felt it in her bones something was wrong. With respect, we have more pressing concerns, Commander Hayes said during the staff meeting. He gestured to the holographic display showing territorial disputes with the Virexians, pirate raids along the outer rim, resource allocation problems. The Thalari are nomads. They'll show up when they show up. They've been gone for 18 months, Sarah said quietly. The longest gap in recorded history was 4 months. Maybe they finally got tired of babysitting younger species, another officer muttered. Sarah's eyes flashed. The Thalari don't get tired of helping. It's who they are. It's what they do. She stood, her hands pressed flat on the table. I'm requesting authorization to launch a search expedition. I want to find them. Find them. Hayes shook his head. Admiral, they could be anywhere in the galaxy. Their range spans thousands of light years. We don't even know where their homeworld is, if they even have one. Then we start with the way station gardens. The places we know they've been. Sarah's voice was firm. I'm not asking for a fleet. Just one ship. One crew. Let me look, the council debated. Resources were stretched. The request seemed sentimental, impractical. But Sarah Chen was a war hero, a survivor, and she had the ear of people who remembered the stories. They gave her one ship. The Remembrance was a scout vessel fast, well-equipped, with a crew of 30 volunteers. All of them had been touched by the Thalari in some way. A pilot whose sister had been saved from a hull breach. An engineer who had learned propulsion theory from a Thalari scholar. A medic who had witnessed them cure a plague on Tau Ceti 4 with organic technology that seemed like magic. They were believers. Their first stop was the Garden of Silent Stars Away Station. In the Helix Nebula, where Thalari ships had been documented resting and regenerating for over 1,000 years. It was a marvel of bioengineering, a massive living structure that floated in space, covered in luminescent forests and crystalline pools that fed on starlight. When the Remembrance arrived, Sarah's heart sank. The garden was dying. The forests were gray, withered. The pools had dried 2 empty craters. The bioluminescence that had once made the station visible from thousands of kilometers away was gone. It was a corpse floating in the void. Life signs? Sarah asked, her voice tight. None, the sensor officer reported. Whatever lived here, it's dead. Has been for months. They sent a team aboard. Sarah insisted on going herself. Walking through the garden was like walking through a graveyard. The plant sif, they could be called, that crumbled to ash at the slightest touch. The crystalline structures were cracked and dark, and everywhere there was silence. The kind of silence that felt like mourning in what had once been a central chamber. They found it a message. It was carved into the wall, no. Not carved, grown. The remaining living tissue of the garden had shaped itself into symbols. The Thalari script, glowing faintly with the last of its energy. The team's linguist, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, stepped forward, her hand hovering over the symbols. She had studied Thalari language for 15 years. She could read this. Her face went pale. Admiral ... Her voice shook. It says, "Forgive us. We tried to run, but the hollow found us. The hollow takes everything. We are the last garden. If you find this, if anyone finds this, know that we sang until the end. Tell the small ones. Tell the humans. We believed in them." Silence fell over the team, heavy, crushing the hollow. Someone whispered, "What's the hollow?" No one had an answer. They searched 3 more way station gardens. All dead. All carrying variations of the same message. The Thalari weren't hiding. They weren't exploring new routes. They were fleeing, and they were losing. It was at the 4th garden, the cradle of echoing songs. In the Veil Nebula, that they found something different. This garden wasn't quite dead yet. Some of its forests still held a flicker of green. Some pools still held water. And in the very center, they found a Thalari. One. Alone, it was young at scale, still bright, though dimmed by exhaustion and grief. It was lying beside a pool, one of its 4 hands trailing in the water, singing softly. A song of mourning. "Wait here," Sarah said to her team. She approached alone, slowly, her hands open and visible. The Thalari's eyes, those galaxy-filled eyes, turned to her. For a moment, it simply stared, and then something like recognition flickered. "Human," it whispered in that layered, harmonious voice. "You should not be here. The hollow will come. It always comes." Sarah knelt beside it. "We've been looking for you. For your people. What happened? What is the hollow?" The Thalari's hand trembled in the water. "A mistake. An ancient mistake. We found something long ago. A signal from beyond the edge of known space. We thought it was a civilization. Someone new to meet, to learn from." His eyes closed. "But it was not life. It was the opposite. The hollow is ... consumption. It eats. Not food, not matter. It eats meaning. Purpose. Light itself." Sarah felt ice in her veins. "Where are your people? Where are the ships?" "Fleeing, scattered, dying." The Thalari's voice broke. "We are navigators, not warriors. We have no weapons. No shields designed for war. We tried to run, to hide, to plead. The hollow does not listen. It does not negotiate. It simply ends things. How many of you are left?" The Thalari opened its eyes, and Sarah saw galaxies collapsing. "We numbered in the millions once. Now, perhaps thousands. Maybe less. We do not know. Communication is severed. Ships are alone. Gardens fall silent." It looked directly at Sarah. "Eight! We are dying, Sarah Chen." Sarah's breath caught. "You know my name? All Thalari know your name." Okay, a ghost of something like a smile. "The human who taught us that saving one matters? Keeper of fading songs spoke of you until the very end. Keeper." Sarah's heart clenched. "Is Keeper gone?" 3 months ago. The Hollow took the ship, took the crew, took the songs. The young Thalari reached out with one trembling hand and touched Sarah's face. But before dying, Keeper sent a message to all remaining Thalari. Do you know what it said? Sarah shook her head, tears streaming. Remember the humans? They will remember us. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the Remembrance, staring at the data they had gathered. The locations of reported Hollow sightings, the trajectories of fleeing Thalari ships, the pattern of garden deaths. It was a map of extinction. Behind her, her crew waited in silence. They all knew what she was thinking, what she was deciding. Admiral Commander Hayes said carefully, "We need to report this to the coalition. Let them decide what to do." "I know what they'll decide," Sarah said quietly. "They'll form committees. They'll debate. They'll weigh costs and risks. They'll talk about whether it's humanity's fight." She turned to face her crew. "And while they talk, the Thalari will die." "But what can we do?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "We're one ship. The Hollow has destroyed a species that's millions of years old. What can anyone do against that?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the crystal the Thalari had given her 23 years ago. It still glowed, still sang. 23 years ago, I was dying in the dark," Sarah said, "and the Thalari came. They didn't have to. They didn't owe me anything. But they came because they believed that lights matter. Even one." She looked at each member of her crew. "Keeper told me, if ever the darkness comes for us, if ever we are the ones who scream in silence, remember? Well, I remember." She placed the crystal on the console, and its light filled the room. "Commander Hayes, set course for Earth. Maximum speed." Sarah's voice was steel and fire. "It's time to pay a debt. And it's time to show the Thalari that they were right to believe in us. What are you going to do?" Hayes asked. Sarah Chen, the human who had been saved, looked out at the stars, at the vast, cold galaxy where an ancient, kind species was dying in the dark. "I'm going to remind humanity who we are," she said. "And then I'm going to ask them a question. When the ones who saved us need saving, what do we do?" The Remembrance turned toward home, its engines burning bright.